Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, each and everyone from different parts of the world. Today, we are here for another very exciting episode of Global Express TV, 100 Top Global Influencers. Today, I'm a bit scared. I'm really a bit scared of the influencer who is over here today with us. You know why? I feel myself very proud always that I'm very good in almost all the subjects. But finance. Finance is such a subject which I really try to run off. So today our influencer is such a person who is the legend in that, who has mastered and created a legacy in finance. Not just finance. He has taught to the people through his contributions that if you cannot move a mountain, try to climb it, but don't give up. If you cannot move a mountain, try to climb it, but never give up. That means challenges and tribulations are always part of the life. We should never escape. So such a wonderful legend is here today with us, who is going to give you, and not give you, he's going to influence you. He's going to influence you with his charismatic personality, my dear friends. So with this, I am not going to give you the whole introduction. My co-host, Miss Brenda Dempsey from UK, who is a wonderful author, wonderful leader, wonderful, I don't have words, such a wonderful lady, humanistic personality with me. And she is going to introduce our host, our legend, who is the top 50 leader in fintech and blockchain, which is the latest innovative technology in the world. So you are going to learn a lot from him today, my dear friends. So over to you, Miss Brenda.
Thank you very much, as always, Dr. Sharma, and welcome to everyone watching today. It's such a pleasure, and Dr. Sharma is correct. When we think about finance, many people will run to the hills, as they say in Scotland, but this stalwart and this giant of a man is going to ease us and tell us about the financial world and why it's so important to him. So who am I talking about? I'm talking about the fabulous, the wonderful, the eminent Dr. Kaiser Naseem. And he has over 40 years of international experience in industry, development banking, and finance. He is thought of as a global thought leader, a disruptor, and an innovator with an entrepreneurial flair. And he has conceptualized and developed new institutions and business models in challenging environments. And of course, today is filled with challenging environments. His skills and competencies include bringing to institutions both as an independent board director and an advisor in corporate governance, strategy formulation, oversight, and one that I love, the alignment of business goals with SDGs and ESGs. He, as Dr. Sharma has already intimated, is one of the top 50 fintech influencers in the Middle East and a top 100 global fintech influencer for SDGs. And he was awarded the title Leader in Global Development Finance. So it gives me great pleasure to bring to you our top 100 global influencer, Dr. Kaiser Naseem.
Dr. Kaiser, most welcome to this program.
Okay, thank you very much. So I believe I'm on, right? So thanks a lot for that introduction. But two or three things, first of all, you mentioned the legend in finance, so it's development finance, and I'll explain there's a difference. Obviously, it's finance, but it's development finance. And secondly, I'm a bit, what should I say, that you're scared of me. You shouldn't be scared of me. I mean, I'm not here to intimidate. If anything, by the way, I'm scared of all these adjectives you used for me because, I'm scared whether I can live up to that or not. You I think, gone beyond in describing what background. But look, go ahead.
Well, actually, Dr. Kaiser, you've lived up to that, and these are the titles because of the evidence and experience and what you're bringing to the world. So, as a coach, I'm saying, on them, sir, on them. So I think with that, we will get into our first question for today. And this is called the Top 100 Global Influencers. And we always love to ask our very special guests, what does being an influencer mean for you?
Okay, I realize that this is about influencing and influencers, and I think that's a good question. But look, this word influencer has creeped into our vocabulary recently. And that's why I dwell on the word development finance, because in development finance, you're providing financial assistance for making sure that that financial assistance is actually impacting the economic development of a country. And usually this is for underdeveloped and emerging markets where development finance is needed. Although the concept started obviously with Europe after the war, and then it continues to this day. And when you talk about development, even 30 years ago, again, influencer is a new word and sustainability is a new word. But in the world of development finance, it's always been about being sustainable. I mean, I remember as far back as the 90s, when I actually started, 10 years into my career, but more sort of hands-on in the world of development finance, we were talking about sustainability. We were talking about environment. We were talking about making sure that not only shareholders, but all stakeholders are benefiting from the impact of your financing. And that's why it was called development financing. So moving to your question today, but let me backtrack a little more. So the way we did it then, we didn't say we are influencing you. We said we are creating an awareness of these issues so that businesses, specifically businesses, but governments also and citizens also are aware that if they want to make progress, if they want to make sure that whatever assistance is being given to them or to their country is actually going to be sustainable or going to have an impact which is long-term. That's what sustainability is. You need to be aware of what needs to be done. So it was awareness raising. Today, the same thing is being done. You create that awareness by influencing the decision makers. Could be at the board level, could be at the ministerial levels in governments, could be at the level of societies, of communities. You influence them with what possibilities there are, giving examples of what has happened with similar businesses or governments or communities in the past. So that's what influencing is all about. Now, why can you become, or I don't know if that's the right word to use, but enable to influence someone, you need to have that knowledge or you need to have that information of what impact a certain act will have on a business. So let's just narrow down to business. I mean, I won't keep saying communities and governments. So let's say business. So what is that impact? So, once you've done it, you've seen, you've got examples, for example, corporate governance. And it took a lot of time, again, from the 90s or let's say 2000s when Sarbanes-Oxley, I mean, that's really when corporate governance again came into our vocabulary. Although good governance is something development bankers have been talking about with development professionals much before that, but 2000s. It took a long time for businesses to understand. And even today, there are a lot of businesses which don't understand that it's good business practice. It's not a good to have because you're doing good by having good governance. It's actually helping and impacting your business. So that awareness has to be created. Today, you do it through influencing the stakeholders. So in order, if the business doesn't realize the business case for governance, then the stakeholders realize it and they influence the business by not wanting to buy goods from them, by not wanting to finance their business, by not wanting to have any dealings with that in terms of their supply chain management, because they don't have good governance. And because of that influence or pressure, they will make sure that they're adhering to good governance or ESG principles or responsible finance or responsible innovation. There's so many areas. So that's what influencing is about, I would say, today. Sorry for the long answer, but today that's what it is, but it's always been there.
No, we love that because we're getting insight into your mind and into what you're passionate about, and that's influencing, you're sharing that knowledge. And yes, language changes over the years, but we have to always drill back down to what do we actually mean, what is the real meaning. And we come up with fancy new terms, but unless we actually deal at the core, then nothing changes. So thank you very much for that wonderful answer. I'm going to pass over now to Dr. Sharma.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. That's the reason, Dr. Kaiser, I said, in understanding developmental finance and influence, the chemistry between both of them is like a polysaccharides. Is like the polysaccharides, which has a complex chains. It is a polymers. And to make it into monomers, then we get influenced. It's very tough, but yes, it's a need of the hour. We need to get influenced. We need, as you said, we need to have awareness that is really very important for each and every person. Thank you so much, Dr. Kaiser. And let me move on to the next question, which is we really want some clarity in this. We want to know from you, like we have heard when I was reading about you and everything, we saw Dr. Kaiser, International Development Banker. Dr. Kaiser, International Development Banker. So usually we rarely see this. And we not only me, I'm sure each and everyone really wants to know exactly what does it signifies and what will be the pivotal role in this.
Okay, so I think I explained a bit of it in my previous answer, but unlike a banker who provides financial assistance or loans or credit or whatever for profit making to make sure that the business is running, a development banker does the same thing, but with a very different perspective. And that perspective actually is development. It's in the name itself. To make sure that the dollar being spent on developing the capacity of a business or in expanding a business or in improving what the business is doing. So you have to spend money to buy equipment, buy machinery, buy raw material. But that should be proportionate to the impact that it will have, not just on that business itself, but on the larger community. Because it's the larger community that the development banker wants to develop the impact that we talk about, the economic impact. Unfortunately, we don't see much of that happening in the business world. We see the impact maybe with the shareholders, maybe a few other stakeholders, but not on society at large. And that is the objective of a development banker, to make sure that it does impact the whole society. So that's the difference. I mean, again, you're not giving or lending capital for profit making, but you're lending that to have an impact on all stakeholders. So that's the job of a development bank. And it's not an easy job. Like I explained in my earlier question, there are a lot of things which have to be understood. First of all, going back to the 90s, why should we be making profit? Isn't that what a business is supposed to do? Absolutely. But how you make that profit, and how do you make sure that, because you as a business have the responsibility, because the entrepreneurs, I keep mixing them, but there's so many messages. Entrepreneurs and bankers actually are responsible to make sure that the distribution of capital is made in a manner that it benefits society as a whole. I think this is a responsibility of a banker. It's not a responsibility that he gets a proposal and he looks at the balance sheet and says, this is a good project to finance because they make a lot of money, let's give them money. No, you have limited resources, which you've taken from people as deposits, or you've taken lines of credit from the government or from multilaterals. So as a banker, you're responsible to make sure that this money is used properly. And businesses are the ones who can use it properly because they are the entrepreneurs. Not all of us are entrepreneurs, right? Not all of us have that acumen. Some people are gifted. God has gifted them with the ability to use resources and convert them and add value to them and make money. But make money not just for themselves, but for society at large. So that's basically the difference, which you need to create the awareness of. That why are you in business? You're in business to make money, but you make money so that you can improve the livelihoods of people who are unable to do what you are doing, because you've got that ability. And I think that's the thinking when we talk about sustainability. And that's the sort of thinking that we need to have across the board. Again, I will, at the sake of repeating myself, understand that out of 100 people, not all 100 are able to add value. Even if you give them $100 each, not all of them will be able to add value because they don't have that ability. It could be lack of education. We know that in developing countries, that's an issue. It could be that women can't work in some countries, so 50% of the population isn't there at all. So how can you have an impact? So those 50% are the remaining, they have to carry the other 50%. And I think that's a big responsibility, and that only you can understand if you have the hat, not of a banker, but of a development banker. I'll just stop here. I mean, I can go on and on this topic, but this is the essence of when we talk about sustainability and making sure that the businesses are having an impact and that impact is sustainable.
You're muted, Dr. Sharma.
Sorry, Ms. Brenda. Thank you, Ms. Brenda. So, Dr. Kaiser, indirectly, I can say it is nothing but influencing. So, the very toughest and complex job of influencing in a very different way. And as you said, the business build the people and people will build the business. Whatever our intentions are for the good, for doing something good for the society, not just for ourselves. Thank you for bringing the holistic point of the business, especially in the development of banking, Dr. Kaiser. I'm sure each and every one might have got this point that the holistic values are very important when you are doing business. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Over to you, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you very much. I'm so, as an entrepreneur myself, I was being so engrossed in what you said, and I think I've just taken a leap in my own understanding, and that was around the impact. I talk about ripple effects, and it's the impact of what you do and how it spreads out. And one of the buy lines that I use is making a difference. So there's no point in being in business if you're not making a difference. And forgive me if I've got this wrong, but I think that's what you're trying to say is a development banker. It's helping businesses know what difference it is that they're making. Yes, they're going to make money, but also what is the difference they're making in society and what they're giving because of the service and the business that they are engaged in. And so going back to the top, when you were speaking, you said a word that's music to my ear: legacy. We're here for a reason. Our purpose, give life meaning, but to leave a legacy for those coming behind. So that's the next question I want to ask you about. How can you see the work that you're doing, and how can you help the next generation develop the resiliency that they need to keep going? As your experience is 40 years, can you give our young people, what I call them future voices, some little nugget of brilliance that will help them? Thank you.
I don't know if they're nuggets, certainly, but of brilliance, I wouldn't, that's for you to decide. But first of all, I mean, jokes apart, so impact has been felt. So like I was saying 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when we were creating the awareness, so today you have people talking about sustainability. Today you have funds, investment funds, which are looking at sustainable or projects that adhere to SDGs and ESG. So that is coming. It's there. It's already there. So there has been that impact. So I would like to think, as someone who has been advocating this for years and years, that some of this has and it's not just me, of course. It's the group of development bankers and multilateral institutions, all that. So the impact today is that people are not only talking about it, but a lot of them are implementing these things. We know there's a lot of lip service. We know there's a lot of greenwashing right now, but it will take time. So the impact is being felt. Now, today's youth is very different from, we all know that, from the youth of our times or even 2 decades ago. And the reason for that is they've got more tools at their disposal. And the biggest and the most powerful of that, obviously, is technology. So the message which I give to youth always at all conferences, and I don't miss an opportunity, even if that's not the topic, is that use those tools with responsibility and use those tools with the mindset that you need to target one of those sustainable development goals with whatever you are innovating for, or whatever you're doing. So these are 2 things you have to keep in mind. And the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of innovation today, and still today, again, I've been speaking about this maybe for about 10 years, and there is slowly and steadily a voice has gained momentum in terms of responsible finance and responsible innovation, and also, by the way, responsible use of innovation. That's the third thing. But today also we see a lot of innovation taking place, which is not very responsible. And especially when you are getting or deriving insights from data. I think that's the most dangerous part of not being responsible, because you're interpreting data using artificial intelligence these days. And artificial intelligence is created by our intelligence, right? It's by us. So it depends what we put into that artificial intelligence, or the algorithms, as we call them, that will then decipher and provide insights. And we've seen a lot of lapses in that, starting from the Facebook saga and the Wells Fargo and so many scandals. So we've got to be careful that there are no biases in those algorithms, and that we are doing it with responsibility. So that's what I mean by responsible innovation. And we don't just push it off because normally these platforms are either embedded in bigger institutions or sold to bigger institutions. Like a fintech platform would be embedded in a bank, or a bank would buy it or partner with it. So we need to make sure that what we have claimed that this platform can do is what it will do, without biases. Again, what comes to my mind is whether JP Morgan and Apple, the credit card with Steve Wozniak, and there was this big scandal because the AI differentiated between his wife and him. So he got the loan, his wife didn't get the loan, although the wife was making more money. So these things should not creep in. And similarly, the users of that technology, so the responsible users innovation have to be responsible to make sure that what they intend to do with that platform is what that platform will do. So they should test it before dishing it out to Steve Wozniak and his wife and others. So that's something which I think the youth should be aware of. And a lot of them, because I said, first of all, I advise a lot of these startups, especially fintechs. And, again, 7, 8 years ago, I started off when they used to pitch, that build it into your pitch that, okay, you're solving this problem of, there's a problem in payments, or there's a problem in assessing the credit risk of a small business. So this platform can solve that. However, what else are you doing in terms of having impact on the sustainable development goals? So which of those 17 goals are you hitting? Put that into it, because at least you start thinking that you're not only solving the problem of credit risk, you're also actually solving the problem of financial inclusion. Because if it's easier to assess the risk of unbanked people, you can provide them financing when you're able to assess their risk and include them. So it's financial inclusion. So just put it there that you are hitting financial inclusion. And why you need to put it there is because the UN is compiling every year a report on the progress of meeting these goals. There's 17 goals, but there are 160 objectives under this. So each one of them, and unless and until you have data, they're not met, right? And a lot of this, we're lagging behind SDGs. We all know that, right? Many years, 2030 is, in my view, I don't think we're going to achieve them. But a lot of, I won't say the main reason, but a lot of it has to do with the unavailability of data. If you just can't calculate, you may have had the impact. So this platform that I spoke about may have had the impact of financial inclusion, but they've not captured it. And it doesn't go in the report, so it hasn't happened. So these are things which you have to be aware of when you're innovating, and especially the youth are the guys who are innovating right now. Right? So again, I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we could have a lecture, or we could have,
Sorry, I don't want it to sound like a lecture, but
well, I've chosen the wrong word there. Yeah, I've chosen the wrong word there. Yeah, we could listen all day, and we can see the wealth of your knowledge and the impact that you're actually making. So I'm going to turn you back to the wonderful Dr. Sharma.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. Exactly, Dr. Kaiser. What you said is we have lots of tools. Youth right now are having lots of tools, and they must hold it with responsibility. This is the biggest takeaway that each and every youth now should take away from Dr. Kaiser. Please hold it with responsibility and be responsible. That's wonderful, Dr. Kaiser. And actually, I wanted to ask you something regarding business, but I feel right now is I must ask you something personal. Something personal. I want to, with your permission, the question is like, which is the most happiest moment of your life? And because as a development banker, I know you will be having lots of so many challenges every day. And after those challenges, when you get something happiness, for sure, it will be incredible for us as well to listen, to know. And also, my question didn't stop. Which is your the most happiest moment in your life, and as well, biggest failure, both the ways, so that we should know also, like, what is your, it's a personal question, but we really want to share from you and know from you.
Not that personal, but look, I have a life outside a development banker also. I don't know, you want the happy moment of a development banker or of Kaiser Naseem?
Yeah, both the ways. Yeah, we will be happy to know the ways.
There's several happy moments. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, happiness is something inner, right? It's inside you.
But happiest, Dr. Kaiser, happiest.
Not an easy question to answer. When I saw my kids graduating, so on the personal side, from university and from college, and so that was a very happy moment for me. And it was happy for the reason that there were specific areas that they wanted to get into in the university, and we as parents did not interfere, like good parents of the modern era, and whatever their passions were, and they excelled in that particular fields. And I still have a daughter at university, and again, the mother wanted her to do something, but she wanted to do a specific program, and that's what she's doing now in Canada. That'll be another happy moment when she graduates, I think, in 2024. But coming back to the professional side, so, I mean, you talk about failure, but happy is when you see that the work you're doing is actually having an impact. So in a development banking area or profession, you see institutions grow. So I think Brenda initially introduced that setting up or establishing institutions in difficult environments. So these difficult environments are Central Asia in the 90s. They're no longer that difficult. They're difficult environments. Was Pakistan, there was Egypt. So, setting up institutes, financial institutions, Institute of Corporate Governance, by the way, in Pakistan and in Egypt. And then you see these institutions grow and flourish. So, particular instance of a company in Tashkent, in Uzbekistan, which was set up in 1993. One of my first projects when I was in the World Bank platform. By the way, that's another thing I want to talk about, platforms, before we run out of time. But from that platform, one of my first projects in Central Asia was a leasing company, which is even to date existing, and it's growing and it's expanded a lot in the last, 30 years now. So that gives you a lot of pleasure and happiness when you see that. And especially when there's a new CEO, which is a new CEO, who's a good friend of mine, and you tell him, you know what, I was on your board in 1996. And the guy actually goes back and looks at the minutes of the board meeting. He says, yeah, you were. Of course I was. I just told you that. So, it's a happy moment for me. I don't know if it's failure, but something which I am very sad about, and I think I've written about that in my blogs, on LinkedIn specifically, are the legacy. Again, you spoke about legacy. So the world which we have built, and again, from my perspective as a development banker, it should have been a world which is much better in terms of, let's say, human values, in terms of relationships, international relationships, in terms of economic integration of countries within that, should have been much better than it was in the 70s or 80s or 90s. Unfortunately, it is not. And this is one thing, again, when you talk about youth, and you can see that I talk to youth a lot, and especially at conferences, I tell them. So it's not only learning from what we, with 40 years of experience, have done, and learning of what to do, but also learn what not to do, is what I tell the youth. Learn, because we made a lot of mistakes. We made mistakes in terms of how we've integrated economically, across regions, how we've dealt with each other as countries or nations politically, how we have dealt with our populations within countries. So there's a lot of things there which should not have happened or should have happened differently. And, especially with people who have that ability to have made things better. They've had that ability. And then on top of all that, you have these platforms and the institutions, the United Nations of this world, the World Banks of this world. And despite all that, the world we will leave today to our youth is not the world that we should have left them with all our knowledge and all. So they have to pick up a lot of pieces, the youth. And so that's why they have to be more responsible, because I don't think we were that responsible. And we weren't responsible because those concepts weren't there. There was no concept of governance when the enrons of this world were, taking shape, or when, governments were being formed in the 70s or 80s. There was no governance concepts at that time, that this is how you have to behave as a government, and this is how you have to treat, the communities. So these things we know now. The only thing is we don't practice them. So that's something which I consider, I won't say failure, but it's something which troubles me, that we've not been able to do it. But again, it won't make me happy. But the good thing about it is that at least we know that has happened. And we're not saying we've left a wonderful world and now it's up to you to make it or break it. You have to make it, actually. If you break it further, it's not going to go anywhere. I don't know if it answers your question, but
No, I got the answer. I have found a father. In your question, we got a father, and a wonderful father, who is, as usual, like each and every parent wants their children to get graduated from esteemed universities and want to see that happiness. So we have seen that happiness in you, and we are wishing the very best wishes for your daughter as well for 2024. And I don't think it is a failure. As you said, yes, people like you are there still. Never give up. So maybe it will happen, Dr. Kaiser. Well, always we look up at the positive side. So people like you are there influencing the world in different ways. So definitely it will happen one day, definitely. So thank you so much for this insightful answers. Thank you for sharing your happiness and your kind of failure, which you said, which will become a successful, because challenges always. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Over to you, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you very much. And my next question was about success and failure, but I think we've touched on that. So I want to broaden it out a bit. And, it is quite sad when an expert like yourself and someone who's got so much experience expresses that we haven't done as good a job as maybe we could have. So one of the other big drivers for me is taking control and mastering our mindset. So I would like to ask you, how, through your experience, did you learn to master your mindset so you could be more responsible, make a greater impact, and take responsibility for the words and the actions that you have taken over the course of the last 40 years?
Right. Look, I think these are all lessons learned. Changing mindsets, being able to I wasn't always like what I am today. Obviously, we weren't. Any one of us wasn't. So you go through life, you go through your careers, you meet people, you read books. And I think people derive insights from all these interactions in different ways. And again, I've written, I think it's called Learning Life's Lessons or something, was a blog I made. And it was basically on 4 or 5 things that had influenced my thinking over the years from a very young age, from when I was still a student. So things like, I read a quote, I think I must have been 17 years old at that time, or 18, 17 probably. And it was a magazine I was reading, and it said something like, but it said that you should be kind to people who you meet on your way up, because you might meet them again on your way down. And I was wondering, what does this mean? I'm climbing stairs all the time. Maybe, I meet people on the way. I'm good to them. I don't stop and hug them. But moving on in life, you realize, especially when I started my career, and then you come across people who are your colleagues, or maybe they work for you, and someday they could be your bosses. It happens in real life. And if you've been mean to this guy, he was reporting to you, and then he's your boss. So this is what it means. So these things, you have to take these with, you have to understand the deeper meaning of these interactions. The other was a book I read. This is fresh out of university, Future Shock by Alvin Toffler, and I quote this again in a lot of conferences. You may have heard it also, and which is very true today. And again, at that time, I read it as, okay, it's a story, perhaps. And it was Future Shock. It was about the future. And this is a book in 1978, 1979. And he was saying the illiterate of you must have heard this quote, of the 21st century will not be people who cannot read or write. There will be people who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this is the phase we are in. And that's the mindset you're talking about. It's very difficult for people to change. Unlearning is changing and learning new things. And I've been in boardrooms as a development banker, not as a board director, as development bankers, trying to convince boards to transform their institutions. And this is recent. This is last 7, 8 years, digital transformation. And I've had boards push back and say, look, first of all, they said, we're too old for that. Most boards said that. And we've been doing what we're doing for the last 30 years. And, I don't think we can change, or, we can bring in some young guy and get a little app made, and, that's it. So we've had this difficult discussion. And this is like 5, 7 years ago. So my first reaction was, okay, guys, who's the oldest guy in this room? And inevitably, 5 or 7 years ago, it was me, the board. I said, look, I'm telling you to change. And you're at least 5 or 10 years younger than me. And secondly, while I'm talking, all of you have your heads down and you're doing something on this little instrument. I said, that's technology. So why are you scared of technology? You're using it right now as we speak. You're WhatsApping someone, or you're, checking your emails. And so it's mindset. And that's how you sort of influence the mindset. So they started thinking, absolutely, why are we scared of technology? So there are a lot of institutions which understood it. It wasn't that easy, but they understood it, and they said, let's start having a strategy developed. And, they embarked on that digital transformation journey. And similarly, governance and ESG and SDGs. So these are all mindsets, and the mindsets of change, mostly, that you need to unlearn a lot of things that happen. And this, by the way, another message to youth, not only what not to learn from us, or learn from us what not to do, but also unlearn a lot of things which you've learned from us. Because things have changed. We didn't have artificial intelligence in my time. We didn't have, these tech platforms to crunch data or to get. So you have these right. So unlearn and learn how to use them. You derive insights of in marketing analysis or whatever from very different sources in the 90s or in the 2000s. Today, you have data from where to derive that. So you need to change the way you think. So on and so forth. So that's the very difficult thing to do. So these things impact your life. And I understood this. I don't know why, but I understood this quite early in my career. And again, through interactions, not just sitting in a room, but when you talk to people, when you go into boardrooms, when you're working on a project, you hear people say things, And then you go back and you wonder, why did he say that? Why did he say he cannot unlearn something? How difficult is it to unlearn something and learn something new? If you think about it, and that's, I think, coming back to influencer. So once you have that understanding, I think that's how you can then influence. Like the fact that I said, I'm older than you guys. Why are you saying you're too old to learn technology? I'm telling you to change. And so these things, I think they do help in influencing others. A lot more examples. I mean, I don't know how much time we have, but mindsets, you absolutely said the right thing, Brenda. I think it's all about mindsets. And at the end of the day, it's the most difficult thing to change because people are comfortable in their comfort zone. And those mindsets have been built because of these interactions, so that's why we say exposure. That's why we say, it's good to learn new things. That's why we say it's good to travel. I mean, it's not because it's fun. It's because you broaden your horizon. You get to interact with different type of people. You learn new things. So this is the reason for that. And again, these are things you need to bring back as leaders or as influencers, especially to countries which cannot afford the luxury of their people being exposed to all this. Okay, you have television now, you have internet, but you also have the choice to see what you want to or watch what you want to on that TV. So it's not necessary that you want to watch something which is going to help you develop your personality, but maybe it's something more entertaining and all that. So you got to bring these people, and I think that's what the leaders should be doing. You got to muster whatever resources you have, which brings me back to the 50% resources, which a lot of emerging markets are ignoring. And again, I've written about that. I think I've shared it with you also, women. So if you have 50% of your workforce not in the workforce or your potential workforce, how can you have 100% impact? It's impossible. 50 plus 0 is 50. It's not 100. So you need to include those 50%. And to include them, you need to empower them with knowledge. Again, I'm talking about developing countries, emerging markets, but also developed countries. Empower them with the tools, with the confidence, let's say, the abilities to be able to participate in economic development. So these are things which I think, as you walk through your career, as you walk through your professional life, as you meet people, as you think, as you see businesses growing, these are things which you need to influence. Because these are things which matter. We talk about them today. We talk about SDGs. There's an SDG on women empowerment. There's an SDG on education. But we didn't need the SDGs to tell us that you need to educate people. We didn't need SDGs to tell us that 50% of a country's population you can just ignore and still say, okay, we're going to have 100% impact. You can't. I mean, you don't need an SDG for that. But okay, since we have an SDG, let's start measuring it because it's a good way to measure whether you're doing things or not. And again, I mean, we're far from it because there's a lot of lip service being paid right now. Again, because of mindsets. People are not convinced. There are a lot of people still today who are not convinced on SDGs or the fact that women should be in the working force or, technology should be used, things like that. But we need to continue, like Dr. Sharma mentioned, climb the mountain. Don't break it. Actually, you can make a tunnel also, shortcut, but climbing it is better.
Oh, thank you so much. And there's so much in there, for me, mindset's massive. It's because I'm just absolutely love all things to do with the mind, but it's deeper than that. It's about that connection within, and that helps with that developing and being aware of our own emotional intelligence and how we develop that. And that's about learning about ourselves and having that self-awareness, which you spoke about earlier on as well. So all of these things come together, as well as inclusion, diversity, and equality, which I think is what you were talking about at the end, and that's huge. And we see that I've seen Walker talk in the International Institute of Influencers, and even on today's program, we are looking at that, where we're here from different parts of the world coming together with one voice and joined through values and a vision for a better world. So thank you so much. There was so much insight in there, and it highly resonated with myself, and I'm sure Dr. Sharma will have something to say. Dr. Sharma, over to you for the final question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. And Dr. Kaiser, exactly what you said, unlearn and relearn. It is, I believe what you said is resonates with the Charles Darwin's theory, which says survival of fittest and adaptation. If you don't adapt, if you don't unlearn, and if you don't adapt to the new situations, new things, you will become extinct like dinosaurs. And if you want to survive, then relearn, like then you will, instead of extinct, you'll be upgraded like giraffes, which he has clearly explained so many centuries before. Thank you for this wonderful unlearn and relearn. I'm sure most of those people who are watching, they'll be trying to unlearn and relearn again. So thank you so much, Dr. Kaisen. Last question that we all want as our organization is working on humanization of education, that is promoting education for life, not just for living. So we want you to just spotlight this as a innovator, as a development banker, as a great human being. As a great human being, we want to listen from you. Your spotlight on this.
Okay, before that, let me just briefly, if I have another couple of minutes on this platform, because I spoke about platforms and we're talking about influencing. So one thing is very important when you're influencing, or if you would want to influence companies or whoever, is that you need a platform to do it. And that's again because of the mindsets that, I can tell you that speaking like as Kaiser Naseem, or speaking like the United Nations, if I'm working for them or the World Bank, or speaking from the III, it carries different weight. So people would not probably want to listen to Kaiser Naseem, but they would want to listen to Kaiser Naseem of the World Bank Group. So these platforms are very important. So I call them platforms. The companies you work for, the banks you work for, the institutions you work, these are platforms. And you should leverage these platforms to be able to reach out to a larger audience who then provide you their ears. Not everyone provides you your ears because you're Kaiser Naseem or you're Dr. Sharma. Maybe if you're Dr. Sharma, they might, but they won't. But if you are from a platform, they provide you their ears. So use those platforms for that purpose. And I know a lot of platforms are very restrictive. If you're employed by a platform, again, I call them platform, they won't let you do a certain thing, but you've got to find ways of doing it if you want to influence. And not doing things which are illegal or which are out of line of what your profession is, but in line with your profession. But use these platforms to leverage, to always leverage that. And, that is why another thing that why I sit on boards now. I took early retirement from the World Bank. It's a different story. I'm not going to get into it. For a very simple reason. The simple reason was I wanted to impact institutions in developing countries, which World Bank, IFC, Asian Development Bank did not reach out to, because these institutions can't reach out to each and every business in a country. So those are the types I wanted to. The reason I chose the bank, the boards of companies, and not doing some advisory work and rewriting their constitution or whatever, is I learned that is the best platform to influence the management of a company from the board of directors. So you provide the oversight, you provide the strategic vision of the company from that, and then you monitor it. And it's a good platform. So that's the platform I use these days, boards of companies to influence, if you may, these companies. Now, coming back to your platform, the International Institute of Influencers, excellent job. I think, humanizing education is actually what needs to be done. So there's education and there's education, right? You have what's it called? I'm forgetting the word. Well, you have the educated, and you have the uneducated, educated. But that's not how it's said. It's said differently. So you may be, a PhD or whatever, but not educated. And this word humane, I think you've used it also. It comes from the word humans, right? It's a derivative of humans.
Homo sapiens, yeah.
Humans are humane, right? So, it should not be thought that humane is coming from human beings. So putting the humane back into humanity or into the human beings is what education should be doing. It should be teaching you disciplines, of course, how, what we've spoken about, development finance and AI and, all those things. But how do you put back the humanity in humans? I think because at the end of the day, it is the human being, it is us people who are going to make that impact, make that difference. It is us who are going to collect resources from society and redeploy them into society to have impact for everyone. So we need to be not only professionally qualified, but also have that ability to be humane, to sense that why we need to make sure that this poor guy living in Pakistan or in Bangladesh who has no tools at his disposal, no education at his disposal, but he also has to live, right? So how do we carry him in our society? Because we have the tools, we have the education, we have the money, we have the business. So how do we make sure that this guy can ride along with us? And there are a lot of people in this world which have to ride along with us. They just have not been gifted with the abilities or qualities to be able to fend for themselves. So we have to fend for them. I think that's the biggest change, I would say, that has to become in this humanity and bringing this humanness into education is what you are trying to do. And I think this is an excellent initiative. And then you're getting influencers on the platform. I'm sure they're influencers much more influential than me, but that's the way you organize them and you provide them a platform. You have to have somewhere where you can voice what you think or what you feel. Again, I'll stop here. I can talk more on this. But
no, thank you so much for spotlighting our vision, which is promoting education for life, not just for living, where we are trying to spread happiness, resiliency, accountability, and integrity in education, Dr. Kaiser. Thank you so much for that. Finally, me and Ms. Brenda want to get wishes for our organization from you. New Year is coming, is almost before us, and new things, new dimensions, new angles, new challenges. So everything new is going to come up. So we request your wishes for our organization, Dr. Kaiser, a small request.
No, I wish you all the best. I believe you've entered your second year of formation, so you'll be 2 years old next year.
This is our second year. We completed 1 year.
Right, so you're still growing up. But look, it's a much needed platform. I agree. You bring here people who share their insights and their, the experiences. And I think that is one of the more important aspects of education. So it's not just classroom, it's also sharing experiences of people who've been around for a while, 30 years plus, 40 years plus. So it's good to listen to them. It's good to listen to younger people also. You should bring younger people. And I think, going forward, you may want to contextualize also your each of your episodes. I don't know, maybe you can contextualize them according to SDGs. That's one way of doing it. That today's episode is SDG 1, SDG 2, as the 17 episodes on that. You can contextualize it on technology, fintech, agri-tech, prop tech, whatever. I don't know. I mean, that might bring some more focus to the type of influencers, or you can also continue like you are. I mean, we talked about general life situation and how you can have an impact on society as a large, like I did, and touching on all subjects, or you can have a mix of that. But you should continue doing what you're doing. And I think education definitely needs a major revamp in many countries of the world. I would say in all countries of the world, in terms of what you are able to do after you've received this knowledge. So you got this knowledge also, but what else have you got to make you understand that knowledge in a better context, and then to use that knowledge more responsibly and in a fashion that can impact society at large. So for that, you need to be more educated than we are today, frankly speaking. We're not educated enough to think that broadly. And I'm telling you out of experience.
Exactly, Dr. Kaiser. And yes, what you said is honestly right. That's what I wanted. We are going to announce new programs. As you said, we are coming up with SDG 2030. Maybe within 2 to 3 days, we are going to announce them. Almost completely different.
I didn't even know that. I preempted you.
Dr. Kaiser, we are the first one in the world who are bringing all the parents from different parts of the world together. Parents, visionary parents, because we believe that the parents are the ones that can bring lots of changes, because they are creating pressure on the students for marks, for grades and all. So we want to bring drastic change in the parents. So we are coming up with a wonderful program for the parents. So lots of new things are coming up in III, International Institute of Influencers. We are in Philippines, we are in Canada, we are in UAE, we are going to be in UAE, we are in Kuwait, USA, and Africa. We are doing lots of international trainings for them, lots of programs. Our magazine is influencing the people. We are totally in 11 verticals right now, 11 departments, working in different directions to influence the people in different ways. And I was really glad when you told me all this, which we are going to announce within 2 days, all these type of programs as well.
Okay.
It was wonderful, Dr. Kaiser.
My pleasure.
Thank you so
actually.
much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me on this platform.
My pleasure. Over to you, Ms. Brenda. You're muted, Ms. Brenda.
Yeah. I would just like to echo what you're saying. And it's such an honor and privilege to come together with like-minded people for the better of society, the world, and definitely that humanization of education. I'd like to thank you most sincerely, Dr. Kaiser, for agreeing to be with us today and for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have. And so much has echoed with myself. I've learned so much. I'm now going to apply some of what you've said into my own business as an entrepreneur, and certainly taking impact and unlearning is absolutely crucial. And as an educator, I agree wholeheartedly that education has to be changed. Here in the UK, we are still using the same strategies we did 200 years ago when education started in classrooms, and we're still putting our children into rows and expecting them to learn in such archaic ways. And this kind of platform is innovative in showing that there's other ways to bring the best out of our young people. And we also do that through the International House of Speakers, where we have many young people shaping their thoughts and shaping their voice for the future. So I'd like to thank you for enhancing the work, for sharing your expertise, and I know this will be a long and meaningful relationship. So thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Kaiser.
Yeah. And you didn't have to convince me, by the way. This is something I love doing, sharing knowledge. I think, again, another part of my development banker hat. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Brenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma.
Bye-bye.